What's up guys, Max here, and an update for a game that we've all been patiently waiting for information for, and it's Street Fighter V. It's been just over a month now since the announcement of the game, and there hasn't been a lot, except the fact that at the Taipei Game Show coming up at the end of this month, Daigo and some select players are going to be getting their hands on Street Fighter V, and it will be broadcast, so as soon as we get that up, I hope it's going to be an exclusive build, or something that's different than the one we already saw, but either way, seeing more of the game in action will be good and give us a chance to dissect some things. But what did happen recently was that Ono was interviewed at Polygon regarding some of the stuff that's been going on with Street Fighter V, and I kind of want to chime in with my 2 cents and exactly what he means, because some of it's a little scary and some of it's extremely good news. And I guess we'll start with the good news because it's just good. They're talking about how the netcode is extremely important for future Capcom fighting titles. It looks like Ono and some of the folks over at Capcom Japan have finally gotten the memo that, yo dog, netplay is important, and really good netplay is now an absolute possibility with next-generation consoles and PC, so I'm very much looking forward to what they're doing. He went on to say that in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, they had to develop new netcode that was a generational leap above what they'd done previously for Street Fighter 4, but they couldn't actually implement it into Ultra Street Fighter 4 since everything behind the game was so totally different. They say that they certainly want to continue breaking new grounds in the arena, and I definitely agree with them that Street Fighter Cross Tekken's netcode was a lot better than Ultra Street Fighter 4, but not on the first day. There was an issue with the sound desyncing, there was a little bit of rollbacks happening, but after the first month or so, I believe the game was patched, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken, in terms of 3D fighter netcode, was extremely good. You needed a stable internet connection, and it was like the first time Capcom really went in-house with like a first-party game that used rollback netcode in a 3D environment and not like a remake of an old game, so for their first attempt, it was very good. And to be honest, if Street Fighter V uses an improved netcode over Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I'm really excited. That means that a potential 1 to 2 frame delay, if not less, is possible from greater distances, but don't forget, if your internet is bad, guys, you gotta make sure that your upload is not being hogged and that you don't have a lot of packet loss. That's very important, but good news about the netcode, that's all fantastic. Now the worrisome kind of thing that he said, and he didn't talk much about it, and I kind of want to go into maybe what he means, but Ono did explain that they're looking for more areas to bring in younger players into Street Fighter V, specifically talking about not really like people that are unskilled or don't have the execution. They specifically said younger players, which is a little worrisome. The first thing you think of younger players, or when I think of kids playing games nowadays, kind of pops into my head Minecraft and Call of Duty. Street Fighter and most fighting games in general don't really appeal to a super young audience. Sure, there's some out there. There's absolutely those kids that have been playing since they were very young and keep going. But I think that in terms of fighting games, there seems to be more of like an adult audience, and I'd like to talk about that on a separate video, how are fighting games actually more tailored for adults because they require a lot more patience. What I do think is coming from this, and there might just be an extra mode, something else specifically that appeals towards new players, maybe a mobile version of Street Fighter V I think would be fantastic as long as it's completely separate than the game. I think the NetherRealm guys did a fantastic job with the Injustice mobile version, and that's what I hope it is, because when they start saying things like that, he specifically was talking about how kids might be easily distracted by other forms of entertainment, kind of wanting to keep kids in and playing Street Fighter V, which is it's very weird. I still don't know what to exactly make of this, but what we can look back is the history of Capcom fighting games and what they have done to actually appeal towards new players, or players that don't have the executional boundaries that some others do. That's a big worrisome for a lot of people, is when you jump into a fighting game, you don't know how long it's going to take you to learn it, and a lot of times people like hitting buttons and getting stuff done. Killer Instinct's really good because of this, because you kind of hit buttons in Killer Instinct and get combos, but until you go up against somebody who has half a brain, and you can actually stop them completely in their tracks with combo breakers and counter breakers. So there's a good balance to the system there. However, in Street Fighter, really tight timed links has always been kind of a thing, and in Omega, they actually took out the tightly timed links, allowing the buffer window to open up a little bit, and if you didn't notice, comboing in Omega mode was a lot easier, and I do kind of hope that's something that takes over into Street Fighter V. Now, I'm not saying they should remove the executional, barrier completely, but there was things in the past, like I was saying, that have done this in Capcom games. You remember some of the Versus titles? There's been a simple mode in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and beyond, and before that, there was manual and there was easy, where you can actually have one button be pressed and continue into the next button combo instead of actually pressing all the attacks to get your proper combo string. And Street Fighter 4 is a game that notoriously has done things to make things easier on players, and it's what actually a lot of people didn't like when they came over from like older Street Fighter games. Was a lot of the execution in Street Fighter 4 is a lot easier compared to previous games because of input leniency. Sometimes when you actually forward, like you map your inputs for the Shoryuken or the Hadouken, the game will accept some pretty crazy inputs in regards to this. Some things that might not be exactly what you put in, but the game's like, yeah, that's close enough. And in some Capcom previous games, they were very strict as far as where you actually had to move the joystick and press the D-pad. You had to be on point with that stuff. It wasn't as strict as maybe like the new Guilty Gear Xrd, but it was pretty hard to do. And in Street Fighter 4, they made that a lot easier for players, and that's something I did agree with. I did think that the executional boundary behind pulling off specific special moves isn't exactly what the game is really about. It's more about when to use those moves, and a lot of people, when it comes to specific combo timing, the game still had that when plinking was discovered. It was kind of a different thing, making them twice as easy, but Street Fighter 4 is notorious for being a game that has allowed more people to jump into it and have more access to the things that a lot of hardcore players really were able to do. So with Street Fighter V, I think that might be what Ono is talking about. I do hope that's what he's talking about, to try to ease everything up on the players somewhat. If you want to have the older options, if you don't like having that stuff that makes the inputs kind of sloppy and easy to do, then just turn it off. I think there'd be an interesting thing if you put levels in there of input leniency, like a level 1 is like the game only accepts the inputs as they are precisely, level 2 is a little bit more lenient, and level 3 is really lenient. And I do hope that's what he's talking about in regards to attracting more, younger players, because I don't know how the heck you're going to get those kids off Minecraft and Call of Duty, to be honest. Other than that, we're going to get more information at the end of this month, guys, some more footage of Street Fighter V, and I'll be back with full breakdowns of what's going on, and hopefully we see another character as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. My name is Maximilian, and I'll see you next time.